go out to Noah in Milwaukee. What's up, Noah?
How's it going, John?
I'm good, brother.
Good to hear your voice.
How are you? It's good to hear yours. What's up?
Doing well. So my question is something that I'm trying to work through, and I hope it can be good for you and the listeners too. So I'm just looking for tools on how to better show empathy without getting choked up.
Why in the world would that be a goal?
So I've got a lot of chances in my life where I'm working with people in deep hurt as a chaplain assistant in the Army, and then just with friends and family too. And I tend to be very, very emotional, and sometimes I want to make sure that my empathy is coming across in a way that it's giving people a disarming, good sense that they can open up with their emotions. And I just want to make sure that, so sometimes I hold myself back from crying. But then I can tend to be kind of apathetic, where if I shut down my emotions, I don't feel like I'm really being effective at being present in that interaction. So I've noticed on your show at times you can catch yourself when you get choked up. Mm-hmm. And I was just wondering kind of what are some of the tools that you use to figure out in that situation? Is it helpful for me to show emotion, or should I hold it back to an extent?
That's a great question. So I want to, before I answer it, I want to differentiate for folks. You know what? I'm not going to. You can figure it out on your own, and people can figure it out on their own. Here's my thoughts on that. Emotions, vulnerability is the only way humans connect with other humans, period. Mm-hmm. And so if I am sitting with somebody in a situation that I am not playing a solving role, but I'm playing a with role. And again, I don't have any notes on this call, so I'm rattling it off in real time. This is how I do this, okay? Mm-hmm. So for instance, I show up and someone's just been told your kid's got pediatric cancer. I show up and just been told your husband has died of a heart attack or is on life support. I don't have a to-do there. My only role is with. I'm going to be with you. Mm-hmm. An emotion becomes a powerful way to connect with somebody. The only time I'm afraid of emotion is if it's so profuse, if it's so heavy and I'm weeping so hard, or I'm so like buzzing so bad that the person who's hurting that I'm there to support feels like they got to take care of me. That has happened only twice in my career. And it was when I had my daughter was very, very young. And I went into two situations unprepared. And one of them I knew was coming. The other one I was like surprised. And they were dealing with the death of very small children and talking to their parents. And both times I did my job and then I left. And I left my partner, which is a no-no, but I knew I'm gonna cause more problem to this situation. And it became my job to not show up for a few months. I took about a year off of showing up with tiny kids because I had a little kid, mm-hmm. and I knew my body was highly attuned to the health and safety of a young child. And so, other than that, I think tears are amazing. Some of the most holy moments of my life have been sitting with people when I'm hurting or I'm experiencing loss, and I look over and they've got tears rolling down their face. Then my body knows I'm safe and I'm not crazy. If I'm called into a situation, like when I was in a university building when an active shooter was loose, and I had students. I called them they were my students, like right, and I had this is my responsibility. Then it's a totally different ball game. Or if I'm rolling into a scene and somebody was actively contemplating suicide, or somebody was actively cutting and they're bleeding, and then it's not time for emotions because I'm trying to solve a problem in that moment, trying to get them to the care they need right now. Mm-hmm. And for me personally, I've never had that as my body shuts off pretty good. Like we got to go to work. In fact, I would say that's one of my superpowers is when things get really bananas, everything slows down and gets real still for me. Some of that's training. Some of that, honestly, is just disposition. If you find yourself called into some of those roles and your body spins out on you, that's when you ask, I need to get some additional training, or I need to be honest and say, this may not be the job for me.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to showing up, man, I'll take a minute. And sometimes I just got to breathe through it because I feel it starting to well up. But if you notice on the show, sometimes the most profound things are what I don't say. It's when I just get quiet for a few seconds. And on the air, it feels like it's 20 minutes, but it's really 3 seconds, right?
Yeah.
So give me a situation that you felt that you blew it because you got too emotional.
So I don't want to get too like introspective because I've kind of worked through that as far as like the social aspect of caring too much what people think of me. So I've worked through that a lot and put my identity in Christ. And so I truly hope that my empathy is that it is out of a loving, like a pure heart, the right heart posture. So some instances, I mean, it can be.
Hold on. Go back to that.
Go ahead.
What do you mean by that? Like if somebody's experienced loss,
yeah.
I don't know. You have to overthink it.
No,
you're allowed to show up and be of support and cry.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, I agree with you, John. That.
Okay.
Yeah, in those more dire instances, I'm not overthinking it in that instance. It's I guess some of the instances where I question whether or not it's helpful is when they're just starting to open up. When it's still the surface level, we haven't really gotten past the presenting issue and to the deeper issue. But when they're just starting to open up, and I can see the hurt that's in their heart, just what's going on in their life, and they haven't really come to the point that they might trust the situation and they can feel openly. And that's where I think it is helpful. I've had guys that have seen me start to get teary-eyed and they feel that they can then open up more. When I was still active duty, I had soldiers that I would, do monthly counselings on, just their performance counseling. And often that would turn into them talking about deeper issues in their life. And so, well, you were asking for a specific situation. It's hard to think of one off the top of my head, and I don't want to give away too much information.
No, that's fair. Do you think you're not good at this?
Yeah. No, I know that God's gifted me at it.
What's the ultimate underlying? I guess the difference between sitting with a veteran and your eyes start glistening and a tear rolls down your face.
Yeah,
that's connective tissue.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody is so hardened that they look at that and they're like, I ain't talking to this dude, then they're not ready to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true. Yeah.
And there's a difference between what I just described and somebody says, hey, I lost a best friend, and then you double over and start sobbing. That means you got your own work to do, right?
Yeah.
And those are two radically different things, right? Mm-hmm. One is your grief is bleeding all over a client, or you're bleeding all over somebody in front of you. The other is, no, I'm a dad and a brother too. And so one of those is highly connective. The other is you using them to prop you up, right? And also sometimes I'll tell people, hey, my somebody comes to me offline, like a friend of mine, or somebody will call and say, hey, my daughter's very, very sick, or my son is really struggling with X, Y, or Z. And I'll tell them, just so you know, I get choked up about this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, if I'm not the right person for them, that's great. That's okay. I'm not connected to the ending there, but I need them to know I'm going to show up. I'm going to be as direct and open and honest and love you as much as I possibly can. And but when I talk about X, Y, and Z, I can get pretty choked up. And it's just, I'm going to take all the bullets out of the gun before we even start talking.
That's good. That puts the focus on the other person in the conversation, and you lay it out on the table, sit with them, and just be present in that moment, and don't let anything else interfere with that.
Well, and here's the other thing. When you put that vulnerability on the table like that, you're modeling for them. You're teaching them this is okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if you lead with what somebody might call a defect, I would never call it that. I think it's a strength, and it's an act of concrete and rebar. It's strength to say, hey, when we start talking about hurting kids, I get choked up. We start talking about lost brothers, I get choked up. We start talking about spouses who cheat on you, I get choked up, just so you know. And you're saying it's got nothing to do with you, it's me. And I ain't afraid to talk about it. And what you've just given them is a path forward to talk about whatever they need to talk about.
That's good.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
I get a lot of criticism on the show just for making jokes about myself. And I know I go too far, and I know I've got my own, self issues that aren't great. But it can be disarming in a way and give people a path forward. So when somebody calls and says, hey, I'm super nervous, and I'll be like, I'm not that good. Then everybody goes, ha, 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 and it kind of just, your shoulders drop, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it brings the human aspect that we struggle with the same thing.
That's right. I'm nervous too.
Yeah.
Same team. So let's figure it out. Let's figure it out. Does that help?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Romans 12:15 says, rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep.
Yeah, I think that's extraordinary wisdom. That's right.
Yeah. I appreciate it, John. You definitely helped kind of tie some stuff together and give license for me to feel that I'm not burdening people by letting them be disarmed, and that I'm there with them to weep with them or rejoice.
No, you're giving them a gift, my brother. You are giving them a path forward, a picture. So well done, my friend. Well done. Thanks for calling, Noah. I'm glad that you're out there loving people, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard.